Good morning. We'll get our Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, August 1st started. We'll start with introductions in the room here. I'm Pat Malone, Commissioner.
Nancy Wise, Commissioner. Suzanne Hoffman, Interim County Administrator.
Congratulations. Okay, welcome. Would that be tomorrow? Okay. And joining us online.
Jeff Van Arsdal, Benton County Sheriff.
Morning.
Good morning.
That looks like it. Are there any announcements this morning? We hardly ever have any announcements. Any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll consider the agenda approved. We have a couple people signed up who want to comment. First up, Andy Bennett, come up to the microphone and you may have to press the button so it goes green. And you, Andy, you have up to 3 minutes.
So I'm here representing residents who. Yeah, my name is Andy Bennett, and I'm here to represent residents who live out on Scenic Drive. I've lived at my home there for 34 years, and I'm the second owner of the property, which was built in 1938. That's just a little background. So I raised 4 kids there, have 7 grandkids. And over the years, the traffic on Scenic Drive has just become intolerable. And I don't know if you folks have had a chance to look at the speed study that was done just this last February that shows, I mean, we had people out there driving 80 miles an hour. So a speed study was conducted probably multiple times over the last 10 years. And the most recent one was in February of 2023, which is what is based, what was requested from ODOT to use, even though a speed had already been established at the 50th percentile. And this takes it down to 5 miles below that. It's being requested at 45. I originally had asked it to be in 2019, be set at 35, because there's a lot more to it than just the road and speed things. Because if you've ever driven out on Scenic Drive, it's called Scenic Drive for a reason. It's about 4 to 5 miles long from Highway 20 to Spring Hill Road. It's got curves, long straightaway, hills, all the way till you get down to Spring Hill Road. And so there's kids, bicycle riders, grown-ups, horses that used to be out there all the time. And you hardly see any of that anymore because people are afraid to actually go out there. And when you look at the speed studies here and how fast people are driving, it's unbelievable. And the information feedback I get is It's Oregon statute. It's ODOT. We can't change the things. We can't lower it down to what you want. But in my past history, I helped State Representative Jeff Gilmore. We got permanent funding for the Buena Vista Ferry back in the 1980s. Lowered a speed limit in South Salem after Roger Budke, the engineer for Salem, said, that's not going to happen. Well, we got it down to 25 miles an hour. So I know things can happen even when it says it's not going to happen. And that's why in my letter to the commissioners, I said, we need a can-do attitude, and safety out there on Scenic Drive is really, really important. And we need,
Andy?
yeah, and so we need to lower it. So what I'm asking for, instead of a decision today, is a postponement of the decision to implement that rule today so we can gather more information about wildlife corridors. We have one right next to my property. And I'm not saying that we don't need to go forward. I'm saying we just need to have more time and involve the community like the law says. We were not involved. This decision says, here it is. We're going to mandate this on you. And the law specifically says citizens have an input.
Thank you.
Sir, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You mentioned working with a previous state representative. Is that correct?
Yes,
Have you reached out to, I believe, the state representative for that area, Shelley Bosshart Davis?
I've reached out to, in the letter I wrote to the county commissioners, I called everybody. I got no response. I mean, so, and I also said, I'm willing to do what it takes to get this, to take my time to help the commission and the civil engineers do the work, because I feel it's so important that we don't have a hit and run out there. And that's why I'm asking for speed cameras through the Federal Infrastructure Act that was passed a year ago. And the feedback is that's not in line with Oregon statutes, but statutes can be amended. And yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And we have the Public Works folks in the room and our sheriff online. So you're talking to the right people.
Yeah, well, I hope we can find common ground.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, Ann Foltz.
Okay. Hi. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ann Foltz. Thank you so much for allowing this public comment time. I wrote you all an email yesterday. I'm not sure if you read it. I am here representing my neighborhood and my family with concerns about the increase in traffic at the intersection of 53rd and Country Club. My understanding is there is going to be some conversation around putting in traffic circles, 2 more traffic circles further north on 53rd. And I am here to request that you consider putting in a traffic circle at Country Club. It is an increasingly dangerous intersection as it is right now. It's a 2-way stop on Country Club, and people driving north out of Philomath into Corvallis are almost always above the speed limit that is 35 in that intersection. My family and I have lived in a home there about 2 blocks north of the intersection for 17 years, and it has just become more and more dangerous. With the development of the flats at the corner there, that would be southwest corner, the visibility has significantly diminished. I did reference, Nancy Weiss, that you were on the council at the time and you approved that development. We desperately need some infrastructure there. We have new communities that have been built, Russell Gardens. There's going to be another development further west on Country Club. And then there is more development off of Nash, and there has been more development in Philomath. My husband commutes to Philomath about 4 times a day, and he has seen 3 accidents in the last 6 months. We regularly see people just blowing through that intersection. They often are going in excess of 60 miles per hour, and there's housing on all four corners of that street now with the apartments. So it's frustrating to me that development has been allowed to happen without any investment in infrastructure. I also drive 53rd North to Walnut pretty much on a daily basis, and I do not understand the proposal for putting in a traffic circle at Willow. Those neighborhoods are established. There's no new development there. My guess would be that maybe people are tired of waiting to turn, or maybe I've also heard there might be a circle put in at Reservoir where there's already a functioning light. The line that I put in my email is you might save commuters a couple of minutes by putting in those circles. But if you put in a circle at Country Club, you will be saving lives. I have no doubt. I would really like to invite all the commissioners and the sheriff to come and observe traffic at that intersection on a daily basis. I walk it several times a week, and I feel like I'm often taking my life in my hands, even with the blinkers at that crosswalk. It is awful. And people, even if I slow to a stroll in the crosswalk to remind people that they need to go slower, I often get honked at and yelled at by people coming in from Philomath. It just seems like a really obvious place for some great action on the part of the county commissioners, because it is a corridor that connects to, I assume, the biggest cities in the county. Are there any questions?
Just that I think we can maybe after the meeting have conversations about maybe looking back at our TSP and see what our options are. Right. So thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Right. We did hear a rumor when the apartments were going in that there was going to be a circle. And I don't know if that was just something that was said to the neighbors to placate us. I've never seen anything in writing, but I've heard that there was a plan to put in a circle there. So I don't know.
I think for the record, I was on the council when we rezoned the property.
Right.
I personally did not have anything to do
Sorry.
with the
Yes.
development.
Thank you.
But Corvallis does need housing. So
Oh, I am as a public school teacher who works with students navigating poverty and teachers who cannot afford to live in Corvallis. I 100% agree. I have no problem with the housing that went in. I only hope that we can make sure it's safe.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next up is our consent calendar. I would entertain a motion.
move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved. Next up, department reports 5.1. Notice of intent to apply for a safe streets and roads for all grant safety action plan. Laurel Byer and Owen.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
This is the Public Works Day, I guess. You know, we're all on the agenda, which is good. I brought one up here also with the,
I'm sorry. I meant to say, Chair, we have one more person online that would like to provide public comment.
Oh.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any, I don't know who that is. So
It says Wendy. So
Hello,
Wendy.
can you hear me?
Yes, we usually
Yes.
have up to 3 minutes for public comment.
Excellent, thank you. My name is Wendy Byrne, and I actually saw on the agenda, was very excited to see what Public Works is about to speak about. The request for to apply for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, the Safety Action Plan. And I think it dovetails really nicely with what the last two commenters came to speak to you about, because it is a very apparent that safety is on everybody's minds, roadway safety, and that I would love to see the county take advantage of every opportunity to apply for grants to improve safety for all roadway users in our county. I think it would set a really good example for other counties as well as for the city of Corvallis if this grant was able to be applied for and was successful. So I hope the commissioners will support it, because I used to ride my bike in both of those locations where those two speakers were speaking of, and I will no longer ride there because it's not that the roads are in bad shape, it's that the drivers are unsafe and something needs to be done about it. So thank you for your time. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you, Wendy. And we have Meredith online wishing to have a chance for public comment. Wendy?
Hello.
Yep.
Oh, hi. Hello, Commissioners. My name is Meredith Wadlington. I'm a policy coordinator at a statewide nonprofit called Unite Oregon. Unite Oregon is partnering with the Health Justice Recovery Network to ensure that Measure 110 is implemented the way that voters intended it to be. And I'm just here to give a quick update about Measure 110. This is the year that Measure 110 is really on firm footing. New data has shown that there's been a dramatic increase in the number of people receiving addiction services funded by Measure 110. Tens of millions of dollars are going to direct services instead of the revolving door of the prison system. And that's resulting in more stable families, more stable communities. And there are plenty of resources available in Oregon that were not available before Measure 110. This session, we passed the Hope and Recovery Act, House Bill 2513, which results in basically what it does is it fixes a lot of the implementation challenges that we saw in the rollout of Measure 110, making it more effective, transparent, and accountable. And last month, the Oregon Health Authority released a second quarter report of the number of Oregonians across the state receiving services through Measure 110 instead of entering the criminal justice system. You can find the report on OHA's website. I'll email it to you after the meeting today, but substance use treatment has increased by 44%. Employment services increased by 136%, housing services increased by 125%. We're really headed in the right direction. I'm excited about the future of Measure 110. And if you're interested in having my colleagues from the Health Justice Recovery Alliance attend a future meeting along with providers. You have some incredible providers in Benton County to present to the Board of Commissioners. We'd love to set that up. We'd also invite you to a site visit to tour facilities and meet with providers. If you're interested, I would love to follow up with you about that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have anybody else? Okay. Where were we? Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us about a grant opportunity.
Sure. So in 2019, Benton County adopted an update to our transportation system plan. And as part of that process, it was highlighted that we really need to go back and review freight routes versus multimodal routes because we don't have any identified specific freight routes in Benton County. And so one of these opportunities is through the federal grant, U.S. Department of Transportation. It's the Safe Streets and Roads for All. And what that would look at doing is putting together a safety action plan for all of Benton County. And we would look not only at the freight routes, but also look at scenic as an example. Our 53rd, we would look at all our roads and see what kind of safety countermeasures could be provided and put that in a plan for later. Actually, probably what we would do is we would look, the hope is if once we get this safety action plan in place, then we can go back to the Safe Streets for All and look for implementation money from them. And this was put together as part of the infrastructure package at the federal level. And it is supposed to have 5 years of funding allocated to it. And this is year 2. This grant we actually already applied for. I apologize because we had to move on it quickly. We had actually looked to the state and they have a transportation growth management grant that we were looking at applying for. But we received feedback from the state that they're like, this isn't going to be competitive. So really you shouldn't apply for this particular grant. So that's when we switched gears and jumped on this Safe Streets for All program. Excuse me. I think this really does tie critically to our safety issues that we have in the county. And I think this would be a great opportunity for us. We've requested $320,000 and there is a match required of it. So the county would need to come up with $80,000, but that would generally just come from the road fund. Any questions on this grant opportunity?
Yeah, so you've already applied, how soon will we?
So they will actually make first recommendations in October. And then, so the money would come in 2024. And so we would look at doing that planning act grant in the year of 2024.
Is that federal fiscal year?
It's federal, yes, which is October.
So fairly soon,
It would be, yes.
right?
I'll just say thank you for being nimble and switching gears when you need to.
Well, and we've had several examples of, well, if you can get the planning done, then opportunities open up for implementing what you've planned. So,
And the other thing about this program too is they wouldn't actually grant you an implementation grant unless you had a safety action plan or a plan that was comparable to a safety action. So we really need to go through this step first.
no, there's a definite theme, get the planning done and then come talk to us. So I don't have any other questions, just keep us posted. This sounds like we'll be filling a needed hole in our planning. So is that it on 5.1?
I think we need a motion from you.
Oh, that's right. Page 40.
I move to approve the notice of intent to apply for funding through the Safe Streets and Roads for All discretionary grant program for a Benton County Safety Action Plan.
I'll second that. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Now 5.2.
Yes, now 5.2. So 5.2 is the multimodal project discretionary grant application that is due in August 21st. And this is another solicitation for, actually it's a pool of grants. So there's a mega grant infra, which is, I don't know what that stands for. Infrastructure, and the rural surface transportation grant, which is considered rural. So it can be used for planning, permitting, preliminary engineering, as well as construction. And so one of the projects that we have on the books, have had on the books since before 1985, is the Southwest 53rd Overcrossing project. It alone would not rise to the level of a $25 million project. And so that's why we looked at including I'm going to call them traffic circles, but they're not, they're roundabouts at Reservoir Avenue and Willow. And Willow, that's really it's being proactive. It's really to address future traffic that's going to be part of the Mary's annexation. And then Reservoir Avenue, the existing signal that's there was actually supposed to be temporary in nature anyways. And we always had long-term plans to install a roundabout if warranted at that intersection. And so the idea was to not only apply for the 53rd overcrossing, but also include those intersection improvements. Really, it's proactive before development happens, which we don't usually have the money to do that. So this would include upgrading Southwest 53rd to meet city standards, as well as the overpass, the bridge that goes over there. It also naturalizes Denali Creek. So we would look at removing it from the culvert that right now goes underneath 53rd and making it a creek and an amenity. Probably do some landscaping along the overpass and also some benches. The existing 53rd would actually turn into cul-de-sacs, so that way through traffic couldn't occur under the railroad crossing. But we would also make sure to keep the multi-use path so that way people could still ride their bikes along the lower section of the old 53rd. The thing that I probably need a little bit of guidance on from you is which grant to really go for. This project could qualify for the infra grant and also the rural grant, but the infra is a 40% match. So that would mean we would need to come up with a $10 million match, which county road funds does not have anywhere near that. In fact, even to qualify for the match for the rural grant, which would be 5 million, we would need to look at probably getting a loan from the state or doing something else, because we just don't have that kind of cash reserve to meet that match. Any questions on that one?
Yes, so I guess, is there much of a difference? I mean, besides $5 million in applying for a loan from the Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank? I mean, what is the difference? Or what is the impact to the county if we were to apply for a $10 million loan versus 5 million?
Right. And that's why I wish is Rick on the line, because I'm not totally sure, because that's a finance question as far as can we qualify for a $10 million loan? I know it'd be easier to qualify for a $5 million loan, plus all the other projects that the county's trying to do.
Has finance looked into the possibility of even the $5 million?
I've talked to Rick about it and he said, yes, let's go. I mean, he signed off on putting forward this application, but he didn't give me specifics. I'm sorry.
No, just wanted to make sure that somebody in finance looked at it.
Yeah.
So is there, I mean, you can apply for both, is that correct? Or is it one?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'm just curious about what the downsides would be in applying for both. Does that make one less competitive? I mean, they say, oh, well, they applied for the other one, so maybe not.
No, because they're actually two different competitions, as it were.
Mhm.
And so it probably doesn't hurt us, other than we would have to come up with the extra match money. I think, especially for this project, when I was talking to Gary, I said, if I don't know that we'll ever get this project built unless we're successful in getting a grant like this, because it's just so much money that we wouldn't be able to do projects for over 20, 30 years probably to even be able to build this on our own.
Yeah.
So it's very important for us to try to at least try for these grants, these federal grants.
So, and then my other question has to do with CFM advocates services. So
Yes.
that would cost us $10,000.
Yes, they have done these grant applications before. They've coordinated with other jurisdictions, and it's $10,000 that they would charge. But then not only would it be able to go towards this, there's also another grant opportunity that's opening up in the fall that we could also try for that grant with the same information that they would put together under that $10,000. Does that
Okay.
make sense? So
Okay.
it wouldn't be another 10,000 in the fall.
Okay, so if we had them apply for both and this future upcoming one, that would still be the $10,000. So from that perspective, I mean, it seems like might be worth trying every avenue. And if it's going to cost us $10,000 either way, I would be in favor of trying to go for both.
Well, and it's not $10,000 for them and zero if we did it. I mean, there's a
Oh yeah, there's a huge,
significant staff time cost.
Right.
And I would guess they may, at least may have some expertise and know the magic words. And
yes, they've been successful for other jurisdictions. So it'd be great if they were successful for us too.
I think that to me, that seems like a worthwhile investment. We have not done anything like that with CFM. They've been on board less than a year. And so, and that was part of the appeal of hiring the DC folks is help with grant writing that I think they figured out just advocating in DC is part of the battle, but the other part is helping jurisdictions identify funding sources and then helping access those sources. So I'm not sure I'm ready to decide right now. Are we on authorizing that money, or where would that $10,000 come from?
So I think I know Public Works could float the $10,000 like out of the road fund to hire TFM to do this. Cause I mean, this is for specific road projects. So I don't think that's a stretch whatsoever. So I think, yeah, we could do that under consulting services. So.
Okay. And as far as applying for multiple places for dollars, I think Commissioner Weiss asked, is there any disadvantage? And I don't think I heard any. I guess my question was how big are the pots of dollars? How competitive are
So, and of course, I was looking for that.
these
And
different grants?
I don't have that right here. They're large pots of money. One of the reasons why I looked at trying to get the overcrossing up to 25 million was that the particular rural program, 90% of the funding is going towards infrastructure versus only 10% towards planning. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that we met that threshold, because that makes us more competitive. And it's billions of dollars that we're talking here. It's not like we're trying to go after a grant that only has 100 million available. I mean, these are large pots that, yeah, would be able to sustain a $25 million project.
Well, like you say, this has been on the books for better part of 4 decades, and we have. I don't think we've come any closer to figuring out how to fund it. So going forward with this, and these dollars are limited duration. I think
Yes,
it's,
they are.
5 years, and so I don't think it's very likely that that would continue. I think of the farm bill that every 5 years gets renewed and goes on, but that I think it would be wise of us if we considered these one-time dollars in a 5-year window of opportunity. And you said we were in year 2
Right.
already. 2024 is year 2.
So this is the second, what they call grant announcement, notice of funding opportunity. So they're going to have 3 more opportunities to apply.
Okay. Well, and I think we all have the experience of maybe not being successful the first time, and
Try again. Yes.
and it doesn't cost a lot more to. Hopefully, they haven't changed the forms too much.
Right,
And,
exactly.
so the net investment's already been made.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope, but I'm ready to make a motion.
All right.
I move to approve the notice of intent to apply for multimodal project discretionary grant, Southwest 53rd Street improvements in the INFRA and rural categories.
I'll second that. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
All right.
Well, thank you. And
Sorry, can I make a comment before we go
Sure.
to 5.3? I
Certainly.
just wanted to address the question about the roundabout at Southwest Country Club and 53rd. And that project has actually been funded through the Corvallis Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. And last year we did the study to determine if a roundabout would be the proper treatment at that intersection, and determined that it is the way that we want to go. It's a safer approach there versus a traffic signal. And so we've actually done the survey work out in the corridor. Yeah, and it's currently under design, and Owen is our engineer on that project. So, yeah. Corvallis Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. Campo,
Campo.
Campo, yes.
Thank you. I'm glad you had that information. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but
Great.
because I remember something about TSP saying, let's do a roundabout, and then people saying, no, we want a light and let's change it. So I'm glad it's being taken care of one way or another.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
The other advantage of another roundabout is, I remember the first one, and people will die, and no, you just have to learn something, and it's will be helpful if we have a series of them.
Yes, they work better in series. So yes. Mhm. Great.
And I think Bend shows that you can have a lot of them, and people can get around. That reminds me of the question, what's the difference between a traffic circle and a roundabout? They both go
They
around.
both go around, but traffic circles are a lot smaller and they're not really meant to move traffic or be multimodal friendly. They're mostly obstructions in the middle of the roads to really make people slow down.
Okay.
That's the non-technical version. So yeah,
Thank you for that.
you're welcome. Yeah.
Is that, I've heard both terms, and I know there was a traffic circle on 10th and Grant, I think,
Yes.
and that caused some confusion. Well, that's not a roundabout. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so
We're still
glad that's
doing it.
gone. That's right by my house.
Okay, any other questions about? Perfect,
Nope.
thank you.
5.3, imposition of traffic control on Northwest Oak Creek Drive. Owen.
Hello, Commissioners. I have two speed zone orders for you to review, and hopefully that we can get board orders for so that we can go post these. The first is Oak Creek Drive from 53rd Street to Cardwell Hill Drive. This was brought to our attention by residents who are concerned about speeds and safety on the roadway. Currently, it's posted at 50 miles per hour. We looked at the roadway, did a speed study, and ultimately ended up applying to the state to reduce the speed limit to 45 miles per hour. This would bring it in line with the surrounding roads, 53rd Street, Walnut, and Harrison Boulevard. The state did their own independent analysis and study and agreed with our recommendation to lower it to 45 miles per hour. I think those are the main points. Do you have any questions about it? There's a heavy use of multimodal access to recreation, and then there's a number of neighborhoods that this road services.
Could you give us like a high level overview of what this process entails? How you go about changing a speed limit?
Yeah, definitely. So ODOT is responsible for speed zoning authority. The county can request a change or to establish a speed zone on our facilities. And this, we put in it, the way we do it currently is we'll go out and look at the roadway, see what the speeds are. They're in Oregon revised statutes and Oregon administrative rules. It's a set out process on how and what we can post speed limits at. So we follow that. And basically at this point, it used to be that you look at a number of different things, the usage of the road, curves, school zones, all of that. But primarily it was based off of the 85th percentile speed. This is the speed at which 85% of vehicles are traveling at or below. Currently, just recently, they changed it to allow more context. And depending on the classification of the road, you are able to post it based off the 50th percentile of the road, so a lower speed limit, which has been helpful in like these two, and then other ones that we are working on in order for us to be able to lower the speed limit. So yeah, the state will do their own review and give a recommendation, and then we either agree with it or we can request that they reconsider their recommendation. And if we can't come to an agreement, we can take it to a review panel and see if there's something that can be done. So
Thank you.
And by state, you mean ODOT.
ODOT, correct.
All right. I know there was a request on a county road that I believe was, they got some years back, got it lowered to 50 and they wanted it to go to 45. And the information we got was, yeah, you can ask for that, but you may lose your 50 and it may go back to 55. So, I mean, the state has a lot of authority. It sounds like they're becoming a little more flexible, going from 85% to 50.
Yeah, and that's all, like I said, that's based off, it's what's in the, currently in the Oregon administrative rules and revised statutes. So they're just enforcing that.
And part of the goal is to have speed limits be consistent. So if you're in a suburban setting, doesn't matter exactly where, but speed limits will be consistent. I remember, write this one down, when I was a kid, and I think that may be part of the reason why the state took over. There was a cute little town on 99W, I believe it was Dundee. And so when you went through towns, it was usually 25, but in Dundee, I believe it was 15. And they made a lot of money because people, you know, were used to, well, I'm going through town. And anyway, I blame Dundee for ODOT saying we need more consistency around the state so that when people are traveling, they have some notion what speed limit they should be going. I appreciate kind of the background on the process, and I know Portland did a lot of work maybe in the last legislative session to have the authority to, in residential neighborhoods, to go from 25 to 20. And it was kind of a big deal because even Portland had to negotiate and with ODOT to get that change.
Yes. And that's also in there, that in the administrative rules that cities can apply for 5 miles below statutory speed limits. But we don't have that option. So yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, and the other piece of the puzzle is enforcement. And I mean, the posted speed limit is one thing, but if it's not observed, then we need the sheriff to work his magic. And I know they moved their mobile speed indicator units around, and I think the idea is, yeah, people slow down for a while and then it goes away and then they go back to normal. So half the battle is good enforcement. I mean, accurate speed limits and then enforcing so that people observe the posted limit.
I am ready to make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the order imposing traffic control on Northwest Oak Creek Drive, County Road number 15500, and direct staff to erect the traffic devices necessary to post a 45-mile-per-hour speed limit in accordance with the state speed zone order and the manual on uniform traffic control devices.
I'll second that. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, 5.4, Northwest Scenic Drive, same issue.
Yep. So this is, again, we're looking to reduce the speed limit. This is on Scenic Drive, which has been discussed today. It goes from Gibson Hill Road to Spring Hill Drive. Currently, this section of road is basic rule, which means drivers can have to drive a safe and prudent speed for the conditions of the roadway, and not to exceed 55 miles per hour. So this would essentially be reducing the maximum speed limit from 55 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour. And this process was initiated when Andy reached out to the county with concerns about safety on the roadway. We did a number of speed studies on the roadway, and based on the data and the current speed zoning rules, we applied to the state for a 45-mile-per-hour speed zone. The state did their own independent review and study, and their recommendation based on the data is for a 50 miles per hour speed limit, which is higher than what we had requested. Like I discussed before, one of the options that we have is to challenge that recommendation, and we ask that they reconsider based on the characteristics of the road. There are a number of curves, there are a lot of driveways on the roadway, and there are schools on either end of the proposed speed zone. Based on our request to reconsider, they ended up agreeing with our 45 mile per hour request, which is 5 miles below the 50th percentile speed, which is as low as that we can get it under current laws. Andy asked to postpone the order. I will leave that up to you. This is as low as we can get currently by following the law. I don't know how long that process would be to get the laws changed and be able to post this lower than 45 miles per hour. So I would personally suggest we move forward with a 45 mile per hour speed limit, get that established, and then if we go the route of looking to get a lower speed limit, that would still be an option. I will say for this one, so some of the data, 61% of cars are traveling with between 45 and 54 miles per hour. So the majority are traveling in that range. There were 4 reported crashes between January 2017 and December 31st, 2019, which is a crash rate of 1.04. The statewide comparable rate is 2.5. So obviously we do want to improve safety on this roadway. We believe a 45 mile per hour speed limit is appropriate for the roadway based on all of our analysis and the state's. And we are looking at other ways to improve safety, such as updating the striping on the road and looking at our signage outside of the speed limit.
So it sounds like we already got it lower than the state wanted it to be. And so it seems like what I'm hearing is it would be very unlikely we can't challenge again, can we, and say, make it 35? Okay. Are there, so you mentioned, I was going to ask, are there other traffic calming or, other safety safety measures that we can implement? You mentioned the striping and some signage. Are there other, maybe this is probably a conversation for another day, but maybe can we think about other stuff that we can implement?
I think also too, because it's something that we struggle with on all rural county roads is speeds and safety. And it's some of the countermeasures that you have for controlling speeds are definitely a lot better applied in the urban setting. But I think this safety action plan, if we are so lucky to get this grant, that's going to be something that we're going to address and look for other tools. We've looked at putting delineators up the most effective is to put curves in the road because that makes people slow down. But that's very expensive when you already have a big straight stretch of road. So we have to look at narrowing lanes, giving the perception that really I should be going slower is kind of tricking the driver in a way just to drive slower because they feel like they're going too fast. But really we can definitely look at that safety action plan to look for other tools to lower speeds because signs don't always work.
Sure. So I have a question for Sheriff Van Arsdal if he is on. Hi, Sheriff. Do your deputies have a chance to get out to Scenic Drive? And would you classify this as kind of a problem area, or what's the sheriff's office experience out there?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, there's lots of pedestrians and there's minimal sidewalk. And it seems like the pedestrian numbers are increasing. They're putting in a new neighborhood on Gibson Hill, which is going to increase the numbers as well. As we've discussed, North Albany is the second largest community in Benton County. There's a substantial amount of folks out there. So you use Scenic as a cut across to Spring Hill, to either Buena Vista or Independence. We recently had our radar trailers Commissioner Malone spoke to out on Spring Hill. I would say Spring Hill is probably our largest problem child in North Albany, followed pretty quickly by Independence Highway. But as far as close connectors, Scenic, people drive way too fast on Scenic. Do we spend a lot of time out there? I can tell you a significant number of my staff lives in North Albany, and they are out in North Albany quite a bit. Do we have crashes on Scenic? None that popped up on my mind. I know that he spoke to the ones from 17 to 19. I don't have current data in front of me as well, but I will tell you that people drive way too fast on Scenic.
Thank you.
Owen, if we did postpone this decision, then it would remain the basic rule and at 55.
So if we were to implement it today, and then if work continued, from neighborhood groups or individuals to get the laws changed, we could come back and change it again to be in accordance with the new law. But for now, at least, I think setting it at 45 is a step in the right direction. Maybe doesn't have to be the end of the story, but I think it's the right step forward.
Ready for a motion?
I am. I move to approve the order imposing traffic control on Northwest Scenic Drive, County Road number 14410, and direct staff to erect the traffic devices necessary to post a 45-mile-per-hour speed limit in accordance with the state speed zone order and the manual and uniform traffic control devices.
I'll second that. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Well, thank you for the information and your hard work. This is, there's kind of a theme to, there's too many cars and they're driving too fast. And I will, in the second grant, I think you mentioned multimodal. Didn't you mention multimodal? do what we can to get people out of their cars and 'cause this is a nice community, relatively small, to get around by transit or walk or bike and keep working on that part of the equation.
So I'm not sure what all the data points are that ODOT might use or that we do. I'm hoping as part of that planning effort, there might be an opportunity to factor in what Andy was talking about in terms of, the current data clearly measures what has been happening, but it's harder to measure what's not happening and why. So that mention of the number of people who may not be coming out anymore to walk or bike or walk their horses because of that fear or what they're experiencing is maybe one of those data points that I would hope would be factored into future safety planning processes too. And I know that involves some level of, community engagement, which takes some time. I'm hoping maybe one or more of these grants would allow for that.
Anything else for the Public Works folks? Well, thank you, and bring us good news on the grants, would you, next time you're here? That's an order.
We didn't vote on that.
Oh. All right. Number 6, one of my favorite agenda items, other. Do we have any other business we need to do today?
I do have an other real quick. I attended the Monroe City Council meeting last night. And one of the topics that came up was the council and the city actually trying to do their own speed study, but they do not have a qualified engineer. And so the city administrator had mentioned that he reached out to somebody here at the county, but had not heard back. So I just wanted to pass along that I heard that and see if there's anything that we can do to maybe help them. I will. Thank you.
All right. If there's no other business, meeting is adjourned in world record time.